Welcome to the debut episode of Horse Profits. I'm Samantha Perry, joined with Ron Nicoletti. Ron, this is the first ever podcast here at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, we're going to zero in on the Kentucky Derby, which starts on Saturday, the 151st Kentucky Derby, and going to try and highlight what we think is going to happen with the Gulfstream horses.
We've had such a strong presence here at Gulfstream Park with success in the Kentucky Derby and moving on down the road to other Triple Crown races. And Ron, you stat boyed it up, didn't you?
Yeah, listen to this. This is incredible. In Florida Derby winners in the Triple Crown, we've had 25 Kentucky Derby winners, 19 Preakness winners, and 16 Belmont winners. That is unbelievable. So we have some really good chances this year. So we're going to delve into that and talk to a few people and see what happens.
Yeah, we've got some very exciting guests for this debut episode of Horse Profits. We have jockey Rajiv Maragh, who's going to join us here in a little bit to talk about his success in the Kentucky Derby as well as what his thoughts are on the race. We've got clocker Mike Welsh with the daily racing form. He kind of gave me some insight on what's going on with the morning workouts. And then we've got trainer Ian Wilks on a horse you've been on the entire time.
Yeah, Burnham Square, and it was great to listen to Ian. We're going to play that for you folks a little bit, and it's just a lot of good stuff that's going on with us leading up to the Kentucky Derby, and of course at Gulfstream Park. If you happen to be joining us live, we'll be here. We have a great simulcast center, and it's just so much fun. Everybody has fun at Kentucky Derby Day, and what do we do? Where do we start today?
My name is Rajiv Maragh. I've been a jockey for almost 25 years. At a young age of 13 years old, I left my island of Jamaica to pursue a jockey career in America. You have to be dedicated 365 days a year, 24/7. You know, the horses always need care every day, whether it's Christmas, and racing. As a jockey, we don't have off seasons. This is a constant go year after year. And if you don't love it, you're gonna get burnt out. But when you love it and you feel like you're not working, this is a part of your life, it becomes very easy. What somebody might think is overwhelming and a lot, for me it feels very easy because, like you say, it's the love and the passion.
Since I was 2 years old, like literally, I can remember myself being that young and being obsessed with horse racing. And it's definitely from the family tradition. You know, I'm a third generation horseman from Jamaica. My dad was a jockey, and in between I have so many family members. Like if you come to the racetrack and you know horse racing, the Mirage name runs really strong. One of the traditions that we have is when we win races, the next day we'll show our token of appreciation by bringing some treats to the barn. I actually won yesterday and I have some treats in the car that I want to come deliver. It's a great time for us to bond with the people that do all the hard work day in and day out with the horses. When I first started riding in 2003, this is my first valet. Yeah, Gerardo. Yeah. So talk about coming full circle. As a jockey, a part of our schedule is not just the races that people see in the afternoon, but there's a build-up in the mornings to train the horses. So that's what I'm doing this morning. I have two scheduled workouts, which are called breezes. So they're timed workouts, and I'm pretty excited about that because it gets me to really feel, test the engine a little bit of what I'm riding. Man, they're all unique individual animals, and they all behave differently. They have different flaws, they have different strengths and weaknesses, and each horse is such an individual. So to be able to know that about them now helps mold you into that. The connection to a horse is really understanding that horse and understanding their likes, their dislikes, their abilities. I definitely speak horse. And since I've become a father, I've actually had a better understanding of horses. They don't speak the English language, neither does my young kids. They give you body language to kind of let you know if something is of matter. Horse racing has made me who I am. It gave me a big purpose in life to think about leaving Jamaica, a small island, to pursue this big dream of an international jockey. That purpose, I think, is very important for our future generations, our kids, to have something that they're passionate about and purposeful. So
That's why the future is important to me.
Rajiv, you left us for a bit, but now you're back here in South Florida. It was so fun getting to follow you and just kind of hear your story. And thanks for joining us here today on Horse Profits.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here with you guys, and I just always enjoy being in Florida. It's really where my heart is, so just really happy to be here.
Now, Rajiv, the Kentucky Derby is one of the most famous 2 minutes in sports. You've been there a few times. What's the atmosphere like in Louisville on Derby week?
Wow, it depends on who you are, right? If you're one of the jockeys riding in the race, the atmosphere is intense. It's a big moment for all the jockeys. You know, we dream about these from we're kids, and to have an opportunity to ride in the race, it's always been something that we look forward to. It's a build-up of years and years culminated in your opportunity, and you kind of want it to happen. So it makes it really intense. But it's also great when you're in the jocks room and you look out and the atmosphere of all these people, the biggest day in our sport, to be a part of it. So that makes it a special moment as well.
In the jocks room, I was lucky to be in the jocks room at Gulfstream Park and at the Preakness. And do you guys have fun before, or is it really get serious and cutthroat?
I mean, like I said, it's based on who you are, you know. Many of the jockeys that are riding in the Derby, we also would be having other races that day. So it depends on who you are. If you have a pretty busy day, it's a go, 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 go. If you only have 1 or 2 races, it could be, you know, some downtime and you get to relax a little bit. One of the cool things about the jockeys room at Churchill Downs on Derby Day is that many of the jockeys' families can be inside the jockeys room. So I've ridden in the Derby about 5 times, and some of the times I've ridden many other races, and other times it's just a few races, and in between you just kind of chill out, relax. There's only so much you can handicap your race, and then it's like, okay, I've already figured it out, I've visualized what I expect, and then it's just to kind of just, you know, relax and until your moment comes.
In the Derby week, or just the Derby card, like races leading up to the Derby, I know that there's a lot of jockeys that say, oh, well, it's just another race. I treat it like just another race. I always feel like that's a bit of a lie, because it's not really just another race.
Right. For me, I know that sounds cliche that you say it's just another race, but that's the way how you keep your composure. If you start thinking about the Derby as the Derby and I got to do something different because I want to win the Derby, you actually can get some anxiety and might not even execute what you're supposed to execute. So the real concept is to think of it how you would ride the race as another race, and just kind of focus on what you want to do as if it was just any other race. And then after you win, you celebrate. I would imagine that's how it would be. But until that moment that you actually ride the race, you have to think of it as just the way you'd ride another race.
You know what I was interested in, you know, when the trainer or the owner or whoever gives you instructions, you know, this, you're on a speed horse, you know, okay, you got to come out of the gate, get position. And as soon as the gate opens, everything can change, right? You have to sort of have a plan 2, a plan 3, I would think.
Yeah, because the variable increases because we're racing so many horses, right? So 20 horses. You know, in a smaller field, you might get off to a slower start, but you can make little adjustments. In a big field like this, there's so many different variables, right? And you come out with a plan. You would want to visualize how you expect to see the race unfold. But once the gate opens, there's so many things that can happen. I've ridden in the Derby from numerous different post positions all the way out to post 20 when I rode Wicked Strong. And the gate, he was the last horse in, and he was the first one to stumble coming out of the gate. So, you know, it just changes. And I think as a jockey in this kind of race, you have to be able to think like a quarterback and be able to call an audible. You cannot just come in with a one-track mind, because it's almost never going to work out that way.
Yeah, it seems that, you know, I always wondered about that. Oh, yeah, this is easy. You're the speed, go to the front, and, you know. So
well, that's easy to say, especially with this year's Derby, because there's seemingly on paper, a lot of speed. From the rail, you have Citizen Bull. You have the two horse Neo Equus, of course, who was here at Gulfstream Park. You have Rodriguez, who wired the field in the Wood Memorial. So on paper, it looks like, if you were riding this race, you're thinking, and let's say you're post 16, you think, to my inside, I've got a lot of speed here. But then when the gates open, you could be like, oh, well, there's Citizen Bull by himself. Like, what happened to these other speed horses?
Right. So it's good to premeditate what you think is going to happen and kind of assess that. But ultimately, the best way to be able to adapt into races is actually, even though you have that expectation of what's to happen, you break with the intention to let your horse take you forward. And then you adjust based on the other things that are unfolding in the race, right? So if you break a horse, even if you think there's a lot of horse speed in the race and you want to be tracking that speed, if you break your horse running forward and you look over and the speed isn't developing, that's when you start making adjustments.
Right.
You don't make the adjustments before the race, the gate opens. The gate opens, the race starts unfolding, and based on what you have expected to happen, and based on what's happening, is when you start adapting, right? And sometimes it's a perfect world that what you envision to happen is actually what's happening, and you fall into the spot.
Right.
But that's where the audible comes in. Now the speed doesn't develop,
Right.
and your horse is taking you. You have to make a bit of a second decision. Do I commit to going with the horse, or do I stick to my mind that I should go to my original plan? And these are the minor adjustments that jockeys have to make, but they make big impact in the race.
Well, we want to really know, and I know Sam and I want to know. We want to know who you like in the race today. How do you think it's going to play out, and who are you going to pick?
Well, if I had a choice to pick what horse I could ride, it would be journalism, for sure. And I'm going to say that's why he's my pick, right? And the reason why I like this horse so much, not only does he seem like the best horse in the race, the fastest horse, the most talented horse, right? His last race in the Santa Anita Derby, he showed that he could overcome adversity. He has multiple gears. He can adapt to different scenarios. Is not a one-trick pony, and it's something that's very important to have in a race like this. When we talk about all these adjustments, journalism is the horse that's best suited to pretty much any flow of the race. If the pace is going fast, he can sit back comfortably and let that unfold. If they're going slower than anticipated, his jockey can utilize his natural ability to sit closer. And he made about 6 or 7 different runs in the Santa Anita Derby, and was still able to absorb all that and win.
Right.
He could have easily lost that race, and people would still have him as the favorite, as the horse to beat, because he had so much trouble.
Exactly.
Right.
And the fact that he was able to absorb that and still win, it's like he doesn't have a flaw.
Yeah. What do you think about when people say, of course, with the California prep races and a race like the Santa Anita Derby with only 5 other runners in it, when they say, I've heard this thrown out quite a bit, well, he got into trouble in a 5-horse field. What's he going to do in a 20-horse field? But I think that that's circumstantial.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way that you perceive it, right? So what I perceive is, yes, he did get in trouble in a 5-horse field, but he got the battle test that he needed.
Right.
Because, if he goes into a 20-horse field and he gets in trouble, it's still trouble, right? He shows that he can overcome adversity, overcome trouble. And I feel like that's very important he already got that out of his system.
Exactly.
And as a jockey, now the jockey, if I was him, I'd be confident to say, hey, if I run into a situation where a little bit of trouble is in front of me, I know the horse can overcome it.
Right.
One of the tough things going into the Derby, because many of these horses are lightly raced, and they haven't even had opportunities to be in an adverse position. You don't know if you put them in a spot how they're going to react.
Right.
It's and that could make the jockey have a bit of an anxiety of, man, I see a position that I want to be in, but I don't know how this horse is going to react. Maybe I shouldn't do it. You have to second guess. And everything is happening so fast.
Right.
One moment you hesitate, your race is over.
So let me dust off the chalk off you two guys here. Go with journalism. Rajiv, we really appreciate you coming out and spending some time with us. And that video that we did, even better to see you when you were a little pup to when you're to right now. So thank you once again.
Old dog.
Old dog. I'm the old dog here.
There's always somebody older than you, and it's this guy right here.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Man, Ron, that Rajiv Maragh, it's so fun getting a jockey's perspective on the race.
Yeah, and he's ridden so many of them, and just to be there, but the pomp, the circumstance, it must be really a wild time to.
Whoa, I think I'm getting a call. Oh, it's Mike Welsh. Mike, what's going on? How's Churchill Downs? You have been at Churchill Downs, the last 2 weeks, very early mornings, checking out and clocking all of these Derby contenders.
Yeah, it's been about a week and a half, but I got to see a lot of these horses work twice, and while I was here, and I also, get to watch all the other workers. There's so many, fantastic horses going to be running here Friday and Saturday in the undercard races too, and I've had the pleasure of seeing a lot of them work up to those races as well.
You've also had the pleasure of keeping an eye front and center on the Gulfstream Park horses, just so familiar with them from the start of the championship meet in December till now. And of course, a lot of eyes are on Sovereignty in Burnham Square. Let's start with Burnham Square, a horse that I think has really shocked a lot of people. But what did you kind of make of his last work? He seemed to be scraping the paint there. And what were your thoughts on it?
I thought his last work was sensational. I thought it was maybe one of the two best Derby workers I've seen here, along with the favorite Journalism, who he's looked sensational all week long, and it may be a level better than all of these. But I love what I've seen from Burnham Square. His gallops going into I actually seen him work twice. The first work was kind of a maintenance-y half mile. He galloped out real well. Bounced out of it good, shows a lot of energy in the morning. And then his last work, which was terrific. I mean, I love the way not only he finished, but galloped out really, really strong. Ian Wilkes has said all along that distance is going to be his friend, and sure looks it from the way he worked. And then he's come back out of that one, and this morning he looked terrific too. So I think he's sitting on a big race. The pace scenario should favor him. You have the question mark with a horse like that, with his running style in a 20-horse field, is you got to get around there clean, and that'll be the case for a lot of these contenders that will be coming from off the pace.
Absolutely. And a horse like Burnham Square, he's not a very big, robust horse by any means.
No.
And that's something that I've clocked from the beginning with him. And it's impressive to me how even with sharp works, and they're not afraid to race this horse at all, who's a gelding. I think that it's been impressive how he still kept good condition throughout this whole season.
Yeah, and if you notice his Bayer speed figures, I mean, they've improved with every single race since he started his career back at Keeneland last fall. I mean, every number has gotten better, which is a great sign. And I know he disappointed a little bit in the Fountain of Youth, but I think coming off that big race in the Holy Bull, he was due to regress a little bit, and he still got a higher number than he ran in the Holy Bull, and then he came back, ran huge in the Bluegrass. So I think he's sitting on a big race, and he is 12-1 in the morning line. I think he might go post with a little bit shorter than that, because he has been a bit of a buzz horse here. But he's going to offer some value, and I think if Journalism, who I think it's definitely the horse to beat, stubs his toe a little bit, gets in some trouble. I mean, he's going to have to work out a trip too. Maybe Burnham Square is the one that'll spring the upset.
What are your thoughts on Sovereignty? So from both of his works in the morning, and you'll be able to talk a lot more of this, the workmate has been geared down by about the 8th pole by design, and he keeps on going. What do you make of that, just seeing him from Florida and then how he's been breezing at Churchill?
I'm guessing, without talking to Bill, that it's a little bit to build up his confidence. If you watched him work this winter leading up to the Fountain of Youth and Florida Derby, you wouldn't have bet 10 cents on him. I mean, he was getting beat in the morning by a maiden mate who actually ran second in a big effort at Keeneland coming off those works. But his work since then are much improved, and I take that as a positive sign. coming out of the Florida Derby. He's looked terrific to me. My only knock against him a little bit, he was getting warm in the morning a couple of mornings when it wasn't that warm here, and that concerned me a tad. But the last 3 or 4 days, he has not shown that. This morning it was 72 degrees during training hours, and he didn't turn a hair, and he looked real good. I think this horse is sitting on a huge race, and again, he's one of those horses that's going to be coming from behind in the big field. He's going to have to get around there clean, but I think he's also one of the ones that can spring what would be an upset if anybody beats Journalism. I think he may be have the best chance to do so. But value wise, Burnham Square is going to be a little bigger price, so you might want to lean in that direction just for the price between these two. But I look for both Florida horses to run big on Saturday if they get a trip. He just has that look of a champion about him. He's done nothing wrong. He comes in with the best form. He comes in with the best speed figures. He overcame trouble in the Santa Anita Derby to win that race. And his last work here, which was really a maintenance work, he just kept going and going forever afterwards. They didn't pull him up till he got all the way past the half-mile pole down the backstretch. That's like a mile and an eighth from where he started. I like everything about him other than, his running style. He's going to be kind of like mid-pack probably early. So, Alberto Rispoli is going to have to, be on top of his game once some of those, pace setters start dropping back at him and the closers start coming around him. He might get first run over, but he's going to have to get a clean run. But I think if he does, he's going to be tough to beat. I definitely think he's the best horse coming in here. But as we know, watching all these derbies over the years, the best horse certainly doesn't always win. I think Publisher is working terrific. I know he's a maiden coming into the race. It was kind of a contrast. Publisher and Tistastic for Steve Asmussen sort of have similar running styles, and they ran in the Arkansas Derby, and we're close there. But in their works, there was Publisher ran in the Arkansas Derby. Tistastic won the Louisiana Derby. So they're both coming in, off of big races. But when they worked together in the morning, Publisher, was just so much the best. Tistastic was very disappointing when they worked on April 19th. They have the same time, but it was not close if you watched the work. Publisher was just cruising along as easy as can be. Tistastic had Joel Rosario on him. He was just scrubbing away like he was in a race and couldn't keep up to the wire, couldn't keep up on the gallop out. I've never seen Tistastic work before that, so I don't know if that's just him in the morning. Like we talked about, Sovereignty wasn't the greatest workhorse this winter. Maybe that is just Tistastic, but, the Publisher has obviously improved quite a bit with the addition of blinkers. And I think he's live. I don't know if he could win. Like I said, he is coming in as a maiden. And maybe the mile and a quarter is a bit of a question mark because he did hang a little bit in the last couple of 100 yards in the Arkansas Derby. But he could be doing any better. He's got IRAD on him. I know I'm going to throw him in some of my gimmicks underneath to grab at least a share.
All right, perfect. Well, Mike, thank you so much. And then for everybody who wants to see your opinions and thoughts, not only on the Derby card, but Oaks card and undercard races, where can they find your Clocker report?
DRF.com, I think /Clocker will do it, or if you go DRF.com under handicap, and it'll give you a section to download the Clocker reports, and they're going to be big.
Now, Ron, you've been on Burnham Square from the very beginning, and you've made some money with him too.
I made some money with him, and I just liked the way he was moving. And luckily, we're going to be talking to Ian Wilks in just a couple of moments, but I got to talk to him when he was at Gulfstream Park. Of course, now he's waiting to run the Kentucky Derby. And every time he said, Ron, with that accent, this horse is going to love the added distance and just comes off as sparkling work. And I just think this horse, all along, I've liked him. I know he finished third in one race, but I think that he is going to move forward. And there's so much speed in the Kentucky Derby. We'll be talking about that. And we just have to ask Ian what he thinks.
Yeah, and it's exciting because we had our co-host, Brian Nadeau, #on the phone with Ian Wilks.
Happy to be joined now by Ian Wilks, who will saddle Burnham Square in Kentucky Derby 151. Of course, we got to know pretty well this winter. Ian, how's the vibe? How's the heavy lifting's done? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. He's full of himself. He's very happy. that's the main thing. And yeah, I'm extremely happy.
Ian, let's just kind of quickly start from the beginning. I mean, this was a horse that. What did you expect when you got him? I mean, you've had a lot of success with the Withams, a homebred, but oddly enough, he was entered for a very high tag, but available at first asking.
Yeah, what about that? I got lucky, hey? Yeah. Yeah, no, if I could lie to you and tell you, oh, he's a good. I knew this was a Derby horse to start with. No, with the pedigree and everything with him, he was a gelding. We decided to put him in for 150. He ran an awfully good race, so that sort of give us a little idea the horse could run. Then we bumped him up to a maiden special weight and run good again, but made a lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and that's when I decided to put the blinkers on after that.
Okay, and I mean he really did seem to blinkers, yes, and then also right here at Gulfstream, he really did seem to come to hand early in that maiden special weight win.
Yeah, exactly. He just never helped the rider. The thing what's confusing is he's a great workhorse. He works tremendous. I don't need the blinkers for him to work. I just need the blinkers when he's around his friends,
Mm-hmm.
because he was running away from his friends, not running into the dirt, just not helping the jockey. So that's the reason I had to put the blinkers on.
Okay, big maiden win here back in December prompted you to go to the Holy Bull. What were the expectations there? I mean, he delivered I guess we call it a
Yeah.
breakthrough performance, huh?
Yeah, I was quietly confident going into that because he had trained very well off of that maiden win, and the maiden win I thought was very good in what he did. So I was quietly confident with him going there.
Uh, Fountain of Youth, Ian. I watched that race a few times, and I thought when I initially watched it, I said, well, he didn't really run that well. And then oddly, I watched it again, and he was really kind of coming on at the end in that race, and it kind of surprised me. And when I went back and took a different look at it, what were your thoughts on that race after you get the big win? What were your thoughts on the Fountain of Youth?
Yeah, there's two things. Um, First of all, I was a little lighter on him coming into this race, into the Fountain of Youth, because he's not a big, robust horse. So I think I can't keep drilling him every month because he's ran every month.
Mm-hmm.
I felt he needed racing because he's making a lot of mistakes. So I wanted to run him, just to run him. So I was a little easy on him. So, and that showed up there. But you know what? He got schooled. Sovereignty schooled him. And put it to me. It's like going, you're finding a bully in the schoolyard.
Yep.
He beat up on him.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a couple of positive things if you look deeper into it. Is he come on at the end of the race? He finished off the race really well, and only got beat 3 lengths from Sovereignty in the race. And then the gallop out was tremendous. He
Yeah.
galloped out good. And then when I took him back to the track off of that race, he never lost confidence. Wasn't shook from it, anything like that. So I gained a lot of confidence off of that race.
And I guess that certainly showed itself in the bluegrass, right? I mean, big time
Yeah,
performance to get a Grade 1 win.
yeah, yeah. That was to make a sustained outside run for he made a long 4.5 furlong run on the outside to do that and catch a Grade 1 winner. That's not easy to do.
Yeah.
That's a very hard. Yeah.
How has he exited that? We all saw the work the other day. It was, looked really, really good.
Yeah, I probably a fraction quicker than I wanted, but who's counting? It was he needed it. He needed to work because he was bouncing off the walls.
Mm-hmm.
He's in his stall, he's bouncing off the wall. He needed to do something. That's the good thing about this horse. I haven't touched the bottom of him yet,
Yeah.
And that's what he's showing me. He's getting better and better and better the more I do with him.
How about the flow on Saturday? I know you know these horses. You talked about Sovereignty. You've looked at this race. I mean, on paper, it looks like, boy, it's going to hit your horse right between the eyes with a pretty honest pace shaping up.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes when you look at a race, when there's so much speed in the race, everyone sits there and looks at each other and don't go, So you got to be careful of that. But it does look a legitimate pace. My biggest friend in this race is the mile and a quarter.
Yeah.
Distance is not an issue for me.
Yeah, you've talked about
Yeah.
that quite a bit. You've got to be really looking forward to the trip that maybe some of these other horses aren't going to handle as good as you.
Yeah, yeah. And we have to work out a trip because
Sure.
we're not going to be on the lead. You know, we're not going to be close to it. And he's got it's going to be up to Brian to figure a trip out, to work it out, where to be. You got to, drawing 9 was a good position because we have to save ground on one turn. We can't be wide on both turns.
Right.
So if we have to come out on the second turn, we can't lose ground on the first turn. We got to save ground somewhere. I think he does. I think he's going to move forward again. I'm going to get him peaking on this Saturday, and I feel quietly confident that he's going to step up again.
All right. Well, Ian, we want to wish you from down here at Gulfstream all the best of luck. It's been a privilege to see him develop all winter right here and then go on and win a Grade 1. So I want to wish you and the team and the Withams the best of luck on Saturday.
Well, Ron, the Gulfstream Park contingent is strong like it is every single year in the Kentucky Derby. Let's start with Sovereignty.
Yeah, Sovereignty, when I'm originally handicapping this race, just forgetting everything else, he looks like the horse to me that could win. You know what I mean? I almost picked him. I've been on Burnham Square, but Sovereignty, I thought his recent second place finish in the Florida Derby sets him up perfectly for the mile and a quarter.
It does, and I think that it's almost a good thing maybe that he finished second last time out. I think that he's a horse that just putting 2 at least solid efforts together in a row are good enough for me, and he looks like one that he's just going to be peaking at the right time. I know that Ian Wilks kind of said the same thing with Burnham Square, but you found some pretty good stats on Junior Alvarado, Bill Mott, and Sovereignty.
Yeah, but just trainer and jockey with Sovereignty, and of course that's Bill Mott and Junior Alvarado. I found this interesting. Dirt Roots at Churchill over the past 5 years, they're 10 for 26, 38% win percentage, and they're in the money 65% of the time. So you say, well, that's not in the Derby, but it just shows that this connection, get their horses to run well, going long at Churchill Downs. As far as Bill Mott, his Dirt Roots at Churchill Downs, he's constant. This is his stat all the time, 22% win, 46% in the money. So he comes into the race, I'm talking about Sovereignty, with at least the stats, if you're a stat guy, with a horse that certainly has the ability to win on the stats.
What do you do with a horse like Grande? Lightly raced here at Gulfstream. He was 9-1 on debut here. I remember that day, just like it was yesterday on January 11th when he finished first here, and that was kind of a big upset. The Wood Memorial, I think, was a sneaky good race.
And then you look at his past performances. You see the name of the trainer, Todd Fletcher, and you see the name of the jockey, John Velasquez. Boy, they're tough to leave off a ticket. Here you're talking about a price horse. Shippers into Churchill Downs, with Todd Fletcher. He's solid, 16%. But this horse, these are the type of horses that could jump up and win the Kentucky Derby anytime. Certainly the connections are there, John Velasquez and Todd Fletcher.
A horse like Neo Equos, who I'm not going to say is without a chance because you've got to be in it to win it. But honestly, I think that lightning would have to strike in order to get the win there. But he looks like a big pace player.
Well, he's got the great equalizer on his side, and that is speed.
Oh, yeah.
You can always have speed. You can always get loose on the front end. And we talked with Ian Wilks. Of course, you heard that he said that sometimes when there's a lot of speed in the race, all the jocks look at each other and expect the other guy to go. Neo Equos, I actually picked him on my super ticket. I think that he's going to get a good position. Maybe not win it, but hold on for a share.
The big wild card in this is Flavien Prat is named to ride Neo Equos. Now, Baeza, who is on the outside looking in, who honestly is the wise guy horse, very lightly races, sitting on post position 21, and as of Thursday morning when we filmed this, is still not in the body of the field. But the difference that makes is if Flavien Prat is still on Neo Equos, Baeza does not get in, I do not see him getting in a suicidal pace duel here.
He'll hand it. He comes off his, he won the title at recently concluded Cleveland Meet. Great rider.
Yeah.
Talking about Baeza, not that he ran at Gulfstream Park, but he's a half the mage who won the Kentucky Derby and a full the door knocker won the Belmont. This will be like a jiggy jog in the park as far as distance goes, if he gets in.
Yeah, that's a big question there. And then as far as who picks up the mount on Neo Equos, that would remain to be seen. Of course, with the connections in Savvy Joseph. But every year, Ron, it's so exciting here on property at Gulfstream Park to be a part of the Florida Derby like this. We've just had so much success with it.
Yeah, we really did. And, I've been, talking about Burnham Square since the beginning. And, Ian Wilkes does an excellent job. He does well. Winner last out and races at Churchill. He's solid. He's 15%. He is high on this horse, and it's a great story. You're looking for great stories. The horse was in for a tag, albeit a big tag. They didn't know what they had. It's a gelding. To just see this horse progress, and with Mike Welch, when you interviewed him, what you guys heard, he likes the fact that this horse's buyers have moved forward, which is a key handicap and angle. So do not count that horse out.
Now, Ron, for my favorite segment, who's your Derby pick?
My Derby pick is Burnham Square. You've been listening to me ad nauseum about this horse.
If I hear that name one more time.
I just think he's set up to run. And, and Ian Wilkes, I trust, he says this horse can run 2 miles. He never gets tired, never comes back. But with that said, that type of running style, he's got to get a trip. You got to get a little bit of a price. If he's 5-2, no. But he's my pick. Sovereignty second. I was really enamored with him. I know what you're going with. We've talked about it.
Yeah, I know you say it's picking chalk, but in my defense, about 3 months ago, I had placed a future bet on journalism before he was big time. So I just want to maybe let myself off the hook a little bit here because when I bet him, he wasn't chalk. So that's one good thing about betting the future wagers. Now, if I can just hold off and get the win, you will not see me at work on Sunday.
You and Rajiv are on journalism. And what is Brian on?
That's a great question, and we'll take a look at Brian's picks here. All right, well, Brian has Sovereignty on top. I'd like his superfecta here. He's got Tistastic for Steve Asmussen rounding everything out.
Yeah, he's a buddy of his, so I think that's why. But no, I'm glad that he picked, that horse on top because I think Sovereignty, when you're handicapping, is the one to beat.
Yeah, it really is. And Ron, this is, they say, some of the greatest 2 minutes in history. I bet we'll find you with a drink in your hand at Christine Lee's watching it.
You better believe it. I'll be here at Gulfstream Park waiting for that race. And yes, I'll probably have a beverage in my hand.
Now, this weekend at Gulfstream Park, Ron, we don't only have the Kentucky Derby on the spotlight here, but we've got 2 stakes races on Derby Day.
Yeah, we got 3-year-olds on the grass. We've got fillies on the grass, and we also have the colts on the grass, and we've got the Honey Rider, and that looks like the number 2 Spirited Boss. 8-5 might be the favorite in that spot in the English Channel. It's Forged Steel, 7-5 on the morning line. There's other ways you can go, and anytime you have grass racing and you have stakes, it's going to be a lot of fun.
And then we've got breaking news because Sunday, after you've cured your Kentucky Derby hangover, we've got a mandatory payout in the Rainbow Six.
Mandatory payout in the Rainbow Six, so that'll be Sunday. So you just carry it right over. And did you make your Preakness bet yet?
That's another exciting thing we've got going on. By 6 p.m. on Saturday, you have to bet the Preakness. You can wager on your first bet account or your express bet account. That's a very exciting future wager to get involved in.
Yeah, you go with your Derby winner. Do you think that horse maybe not win the Derby, but comes back and win the Preakness? There's a lot of horses that do that. They don't make the Derby for some reason, and they set them up perfectly for the Preakness, and you get good odds when you do it.
Yeah, you do. So make sure to get involved with that bet. Ron, there's so much exciting racing action going on this weekend, and what do you always say about that?
Boy, you got to be at Gulfstream Park.